The mop bucket overflowed with water that reflected a sky full of unfamiliar stars. I noticed it at 12:47 a.m., halfway through mopping aisle 3. The store had been closed for nearly an hour. The automatic doors were locked. The windows were black mirrors reflecting rows of shelves and the dull fluorescent lights humming overhead. Everything smelled faintly wrong. Not dangerous. Familiar. Bleach. Floor cleaner. Refrigerated air. Old coffee from the self-serve machine near the front counter. The kind of smell that settled into your clothes after working too many late shifts. I pushed the mop across the cold tile. The fluorescent lights buzzed softly. The refrigerators along the back wall exhaled their constant mechanical breath. Nothing moved. Then I glanced down. The mop bucket sat beside me. Water had sloshed over the rim and spread across the floor. At first I thought the reflection looked strange because the ceiling lights weren't visible. Then I realized there wasn't a reflection at all. I was looking into a sky. A vast sky. Black. Filled with stars. Not stars I recognized. Not that I knew much astronomy. Still, something about them felt wrong immediately. The patterns weren't random. They seemed arranged. Not in constellations. In formations. Like clustered eyes. I blinked. The water remained perfectly still. No ripples. No movement. The bucket itself should have been trembling slightly from the mop handle leaning against it. The water should have shifted. Instead it looked like a sheet of glass cut into a circle. A window. I crouched. The chemical smell of cleaner sharpened in my nose. My knees creaked against the tile. The stars remained fixed. Cold. Distant. Ancient. I reached toward the surface. My fingertips stopped an inch above it. Something about touching it felt impossible. Like pressing a hand into open space. A strange dizziness rolled through me. I pulled back. The sensation vanished immediately. I laughed nervously. The sound echoed farther than it should have. The store suddenly seemed larger. The aisles longer. I stood. The laugh repeated. Not from memory. From somewhere else. A second identical laugh drifted through the building 3 or 4 seconds later. Same tone. Same length. Same breath. As if the sound had taken a wrong turn and arrived late. I froze. The refrigerators hummed. The lights buzzed. Nothing else. I listened for another repetition. None came. Eventually I convinced myself I was tired. I'd worked 6 days straight. My sleep schedule was ruined. Maybe I was imagining things. I grabbed the mop and continued cleaning. By the time I reached aisle 4, I'd almost forgotten the bucket. Then I heard the intercom chime. A soft ding overhead. The kind that played when someone entered. I looked toward the front. The doors remained locked. No one stood inside. Silence. 5 seconds later, the same ding played again. Exactly the same. Not similar. Identical. Every tiny crackle. Every frequency. Like the sound had restarted. I waited. 5 seconds. Ding. Again. My stomach tightened. 5 seconds. Ding. Again. The loop broke after the 4th repetition. The store fell quiet. I checked the security monitor behind the register. Every camera showed empty aisles. Nothing unusual. When I looked back toward aisle 3, the bucket seemed farther away than I remembered. Not much farther. Just enough. I stared at it. The distance felt uncertain. Like trying to judge depth in a dream. Eventually I walked back. The water still showed the impossible sky. The stars appeared brighter now. A faint silver glow shimmered across the surface. I crouched again. The stars weren't fixed anymore. They moved. Slowly. Not drifting. Turning. All together. Like a single enormous mechanism rotating somewhere beyond sight. My throat tightened. The motion was so gradual I couldn't tell if it was happening or if my eyes were inventing it. Then one star shifted independently. A tiny point of pale light. It moved against the others. Stopped. Moved again. Watching. I straightened immediately. My pulse hammered. The fluorescent lights flickered. Darkness swept across the store for half a second. When the lights returned, I found myself standing beside the register. I frowned. I didn't remember walking there. The bucket remained near aisle 3. A minute must have passed. Maybe more. I checked my phone. 12:51. The screen dimmed. I slipped it back into my pocket. Something felt wrong. I checked again. 12:47. I stared. The display remained unchanged. For several seconds I couldn't breathe. Then the numbers switched. 12:52. As though 4 missing minutes had suddenly remembered to exist. The humming lights seemed louder now. The sound pressed against my skull. I looked toward the bucket. The water glowed faintly. Not bright enough to illuminate anything. Bright enough to attract attention. Like moonlight seen through a distant window. I approached carefully. The stars had changed. There were more of them. Thousands. Millions. An impossible depth stretched beneath the circular surface. The bucket should have been less than a foot deep. Instead, the sky seemed endless. I felt cold. Not air conditioning cold. The cold of standing outside at night after snow. The cold of immense empty places. The tile beneath my shoes felt frozen. I leaned closer. The stars pulsed. Not individually. Together. A slow rhythm. Like breathing. For a moment I thought I saw shapes moving between them. Enormous silhouettes. Too large to comprehend. Too distant to identify. Then I realized they weren't moving. The stars were. The dark shapes remained fixed. The sky revolved around them. My reflection should have appeared somewhere on the surface. Didn't. There was only depth. Only distance. Only those ancient lights. A low crackling sound emerged overhead. The store speakers. I looked up. Static whispered through them. The noise resembled voices heard through several closed doors. I couldn't make out words. Yet I understood something instinctively. The sounds weren't trying to communicate. They were observing. Discussing. The way customers might glance at fish in an aquarium. I stepped away. The static stopped. Several seconds later I heard my own footsteps repeat from somewhere behind me. 1, 2, 3. Delayed. Perfect copies. The store was becoming an echo of itself. Moments weren't disappearing. They were lingering. Stacking. I walked to the front entrance. The glass doors showed darkness outside. No parking lot. No streetlights. No neighboring buildings. Just blackness. I stared. Usually I could see the gas station sign across the road. The empty highway. The trees beyond. Now there was nothing. The glass reflected only the store interior. And above it, stars. The unfamiliar stars. I spun around. The bucket remained in aisle 3. Yet the same sky now shimmered faintly in every reflective surface. Refrigerator doors. Microwave window. Coffee machine. Security monitor screens. All of them held fragments of that impossible night. The stars were closer. Not physically. Awareness-wise. Like faces leaning toward a window. I looked back into the bucket. The movement below had become unmistakable. Several stars drifted independently. Tracking me. Following my position around the rim. The realization arrived slowly. The stars weren't stars. They were eyes. Not eyes in the human sense. Something older. Vaster. Points where attention entered reality. The sky wasn't being observed. It was observing me the entire time. A pressure settled behind my forehead. I became aware of countless gazes focused through impossible distances. Patient. Curious. Hungry in a way that had nothing to do with food. The water remained perfectly motionless. A window. Nothing more. Nothing less. The surface widened. Not physically. Perceptually. I could no longer remember where the edges were. The bucket seemed small and infinite simultaneously. My phone vibrated. I pulled it out. 12:47 a.m. The screen displayed the time repeatedly. Rows of identical timestamps. Hundreds of them. 12:47. 12:47. 12:47. 12:47. The digits stretched downward endlessly. I looked up. The fluorescent lights flickered. For an instant, the ceiling vanished. The store opened directly into the unfamiliar sky. Ancient stars crowded overhead, watching. Then the ceiling returned. I stood frozen. The refrigerators hummed. The cleaners smelled sharp and chemical. Cold tile pressed through my shoes. Everything appeared normal. Almost. Except every reflective surface now contained the same impossible heavens. And deep within those ancient constellations, something vast was slowly turning toward the store. Toward me. Toward this tiny rectangle of fluorescent light suspended somewhere no longer connected to the world outside. The automatic doors remained closed. Beyond them waited only darkness and stars. And in the mop bucket at my feet, the sky blinked once. A customer asked which aisle sold the safe version of me. The question came at 2:13 in the morning. There were no other customers in the store. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead with the soft electrical buzz I'd heard so often that my brain usually erased it. Refrigerators along the back wall exhaled cold air in steady intervals. Somewhere near the coffee machines, a compressor clicked on and off. The convenience store existed in its own pocket of time after midnight. People drifted through half awake. Truck drivers, insomniacs, college students buying energy drinks. The man who asked the question didn't fit any category I recognized. He stood at the counter with empty hands, not buying anything, just standing there. He looked ordinary enough. Mid-40s, dark jacket, pale face, but something about him felt slightly out of focus. Not visually, mentally, like my attention couldn't quite settle on him. "Sorry," I said. He smiled politely. "The safe version of me," he repeated. "Which aisle is it in?" For a moment I assumed he was joking. "We don't sell that." His expression didn't change. "Are you sure?" "Pretty sure." He glanced toward the aisles. His eyes lingered somewhere beyond aisle 7. Then he nodded. "Maybe they moved it." Before I could respond, he walked away. Not toward the exit. Into the store. I watched him disappear between shelves of canned soup and bottled water. The conversation should have ended there. Instead, it stayed with me. Something about the phrase bothered me. The safe version of me. The wording felt strangely specific. Not a better version. Not a happier version. Safe. As if another version existed somewhere and needed containment. I shook the thought away. People said weird things at night. That was all. 10 minutes later, I realized I hadn't seen him leave. I checked the front entrance. The doors remained closed. The parking lot outside was empty. Rain streaked the glass. No sign of him. I frowned. The store wasn't large. 8 aisles. 1 restroom. 1 storage room. That was it. I walked toward aisle 7. The fluorescent lights seemed dimmer back there. Not darker, just weaker. The shelves stretched ahead beneath long white strips of humming light. No customer. I looked down aisle 8. Empty. I checked the restroom. Empty. Storage room. Empty. When I returned to the register, I felt vaguely unsettled. Like I'd forgotten something important. The sensation lingered. At 2:31, I caught my reflection in the microwave door near the hot food section. For a second, I didn't recognize myself. The feeling vanished immediately. Still, I stopped. Looked again. Same face. Same dark hair. Same tired eyes. Nothing unusual. Yet I couldn't shake the certainty that something had been different for an instant. I leaned closer. The reflection stared back. Normal. Then I noticed a small scar beneath my jaw. Pale white line. I touched my neck. The scar existed. My fingers traced it. I had no memory of ever getting it. I stood there for nearly a minute, trying to remember. Nothing came. The scar felt old. Years old. How could I forget that? Eventually, I convinced myself I'd simply stopped noticing it. People overlooked things about themselves all the time. Still, the uncertainty stayed. 2:44, the man returned. Or at least I thought it was him. I saw him standing near aisle 4, facing away from me, motionless. I called out, "Need help finding something?" No response. I walked toward him. Halfway there, he stepped into the aisle, disappearing behind shelves. I followed. The aisle was empty. I stopped. The cold air from the refrigerators suddenly felt stronger. The shelves seemed longer than they should have. I could see aisle signs hanging overhead. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then another 8. Then another. The numbers receded into the distance. My stomach tightened. I blinked. The aisle returned to normal length. 8 shelves. Far wall. Nothing strange. I stared for several seconds. The humming lights sounded louder, almost whispering. I couldn't make out words. Only fragments. Soft syllables hiding inside electrical noise. I returned to the register feeling exhausted. My reflection appeared briefly in the security monitor. Something looked wrong. Not dramatically wrong. Just unfamiliar. My smile lines seemed deeper. My nose slightly different. The image corrected itself before I could focus. I rubbed my eyes. Lack of sleep. That had to be it. 3:02. I heard my own voice. Can I help you find anything? The words came from aisle 6. I froze. The store was empty. I knew it was empty, yet I'd heard the sentence clearly. My voice. Not similar. Identical. I walked toward the sound. The aisle stood silent beneath the fluorescent lights. Boxes of cereal lined both sides. Nothing else. Then I heard whispering. Very faint, like distant conversations carried through vents. The sound seemed to come from farther down the aisle, farther than the back wall should allow. I listened. The whispers grew clearer. Hundreds of overlapping voices, all speaking softly, all using my voice. I stepped backward immediately. The whispers faded. The aisle shortened. Everything looked normal again, but the feeling remained. The sensation that the store extended beyond what I could see, that the shelves continued somewhere impossible, looping endlessly. At 3:17, I found a receipt on the floor. The paper looked fresh, still warm from the printer. I picked it up. The timestamp read 3:17. Current time. The purchase listed a single item. Safe version. Price $0. I stared at it. No transaction like that existed in the register. No barcode. No product code. Just those 2 words. A cold pressure settled in my chest. I checked the security footage. The monitor showed the store from 30 seconds earlier. A customer stood at the counter. My breath caught. The customer was me. Not similar. Me. Same uniform. Same posture. Same face. The duplicate stood calmly while another figure operated the register. The cashier was obscured by camera glare. I watched in horror as the receipt printed. The duplicate accepted it, then turned away. The footage skipped. Static flickered. The duplicate vanished. The aisle camera appeared next. The same figure walked between shelves, disappearing into the distance. Past aisle 8. Past aisle 9. Past aisle 10. The footage continued far beyond the dimensions of the building. Rows of shelves stretched endlessly beneath fluorescent lights. The duplicate never looked back. The screen suddenly returned to normal. I nearly dropped the monitor controls. My hands were shaking. I looked around the store. Everything appeared unchanged. Yet the place felt different now. Occupied. The whispers had returned. Faint. Constant. Hidden beneath the electrical hum. I heard fragments. My name. My voice. My memories. Conversations I vaguely recognized. Arguments. Childhood moments. Dreams. The store sounded like my own life being replayed from very far away. I hurried to the restroom, locked the door, splashed water on my face. The mirror above the sink reflected someone exhausted. Someone familiar, but not entirely. I stared harder. My left eyebrow appeared slightly higher than I remembered. My teeth seemed different, the shape of my chin uncertain. Each feature felt almost correct. Almost like a reconstruction made from incomplete instructions. My voice sounded strange when I spoke. You're tired. The words emerged with a different rhythm, a different cadence. Still my voice. But not the version I expected. I suddenly couldn't remember exactly what I used to sound like. That realization terrified me more than anything else. I left the restroom. The aisles seemed longer again. The whispering louder. A movement near the entrance caught my eye. Someone stood by the doors. A man in a store uniform. My uniform. My body. My face. He held a receipt in one hand. The same receipt. Safe version. Price, $0. For a moment neither of us moved. Then he smiled. The expression looked effortless. Comfortable. Certain. The smile of someone who belonged inside his own skin. I realized with growing horror that he lacked all the inconsistencies I'd been noticing. The scar beneath the jaw wasn't there. His posture was straighter. His voice, when he finally spoke, sounded exactly right. Exactly like mine used to. "I found it," he said. The automatic doors slid open. Cold darkness waited outside. Rain shimmered beneath distant streetlights. Normal rain. Normal night. Normal reality. He stepped toward it. I tried to call out. My throat tightened. Only a weak sound emerged. The duplicate paused at the threshold. Then he looked back. Not cruelly. Not triumphantly. Almost sympathetically. Like someone leaving behind a damaged possession. The doors began closing. I ran forward. The aisles stretched suddenly. Lengthening. Shelf after shelf after shelf. The entrance drifted farther away. The whispers rose around me. Thousands of versions of my voice speaking at once. The duplicate became smaller. More distant. The doors finally shut. The store fell silent. I stood alone beneath the fluorescent lights. Breathing hard. The security monitor flickered behind the counter. For an instant, I saw the parking lot camera. A figure walked away through the rain. My face. My body. My life. The image disappeared. The screen returned to normal. Somewhere deep beyond aisle 8. Hidden among endless shelves that should not exist, hundreds of voices whispered my name. And for the first time, I understood what the customer had been asking. The safe version of me had never been for sale. It had only been waiting to be collected.